Morning. I want to greet all of you in the name of Jesus. As you know, we've come together this morning to celebrate the life of Larry Allen Taylor. Larry was born on the 9th of July, 1952, and he passed away on May 9th. Larry is the son of Betty and brother to Jerry with Judy, and brother of Patty. He was the soulmate of Mary Lou, the father of Callie Azell, Joshua, Chance, Richard, Ajane, John Ross, and Viola. He was also a loving uncle and grandfather. As we all have endured grief and loss in our life, grief is a trip. It's a very unique emotion that only comes when there's loss involved. And Mary Lou, I know you've already been grieving. And grieving for now more than a couple of months. And you know the pattern of it, the waves of emotion. Being overwhelmed and then suddenly feeling like you can't breathe, and then life comes again and you feel like maybe there's some hope, and then it comes back. And those things are very common in grief. And it's important to grieve well and to grieve completely. This is what happens in grief. People become overwhelmed, and so they run to things that somehow help the grief subside. And so people will run to substance abuse or drugs or drinking or whatever they do to numb it. But then once you're not high anymore, there's the grief. And this can go on for years, because grief has to be gone through. You can't subvert it. You can't go around it. You can't wish it away or drink it away or drug it away. You can't. That's why I say to you, grieve well. Grieve through it, and God will help you. And that goes for any loss that you have and any love that you have in your life. I just want to encourage you, and you're already demonstrating it by being here, but be gracious to Mary Lou and family, and be patient. People wonder what they can do. Well, you can, if you're close to the family, you can cook and clean, right? Mary Lou, they can come over and just clean the house. Yeah. But there's other things you can do. You can share memories. Probably the most meaningful thing is to share how Larry touched you. And share that with Mary Lou and the family, and funny stories and ways that your life is different because of him. It makes all the difference. Because when it's all said and done, we want to feel like our lives matter. That somehow the world is a better place for having had us in it. And that's strength to loved ones as well. Somebody talked about the little dash that you see on the tombstones. And they always have the date of the birth and the date of the death. And the question is, well, what did you do with your dash? That part that you have, that season that you have to be in this world and to make a difference, to add value to other people, to make sure that your life was worth living and that people are better because of you. And I know from the stories I've heard that Larry touched a lot of folks, touched a lot of people in different ways. And if you could share some of those things, that's always so meaningful. So way to go for being here and being in support of the family. God bless you. I know that Mary Lou and the family appreciates that very much, you being here. There's going to be a luncheon afterward. We certainly hope you'll stay. I believe it's filet and lobster tail. What's that?
Close your eyes.
Right, close your eyes and wish. No, but please stick around for lunch. And I know they'd appreciate that. You can share stories there as well. One of the best things that you can do when you grieve is to remember. And this is a memorial of Larry's life. We want to remember him and honor him. And so I know there's a few of you that are going to say something. I know, Mickey, you're going to say it. Richard and John Ross, you guys want to come on up and hang out together, or you want to come one at a time? All right. Mickey, you want to come first?
They want me to break the ground.
All right. Come on up, buddy. There you go.
I don't recognize anybody in here, and I knew Larry my whole life, ever since he was 12, 13 years old. I'm almost glad my mom passed away first, because it would have broke her heart to see Larry go. She loved him just like a son. I'm kind of reminded of a poem I heard once. Is, you know, what is springtime after all, if only the other side of fall? And how many minutes can we hold before we turn and find the roll? It caught up to Larry, and I remember him telling me one day when we were out to lunch that I got old. And I couldn't imagine him old. To me, he looked the same as he did. Larry made some bad decisions in his life, as I did, as all of us have done. But I will tell you right now that I would never want anybody more to watch my back than Larry. He had more moral character, and he had your back. If he was your friend, there wasn't nothing he wouldn't do for you. And he put himself in danger for me more than once. And like I said, he always had my back. And I think if anybody here really knew Larry, he had your back. You knew that. I know he worried about Mary Lou all the time. Every time we went someplace, he'd gripe and complain that he couldn't give her what he wanted to give her. But I'll tell you, Larry was a rich guy. He had kids that loved him. He had a woman that loved him. You know, he had a good life. He, like I said, he made some bad decisions, but in the end, he made some dang good decisions. And I want to thank everybody here, because he told me one time if something happened, nobody would come. And I knew better. I think he told Mary Lou that, probably told John Ross. I knew better. So, for everybody that did come, thank you. It really means something to Larry, believe me, he knows. It means something to Mary Lou and her kids, and it means something to me. So, thanks for being here, everybody. And like I said, there was never a guy that had your back any more than Larry did. He saved my life once, and he was always there. And I hope I was always there when he needed me. So, thanks for coming, everybody.
Mickey told me that he, just a little bit ago, he said, I don't know if I want to get up in front of people. I'm not that comfortable. You're a good speaker, Mickey. You did a great job. Thank you very much for your tribute. Come on, Richie.
So, I want to first start off by thanking everyone for coming, because, as Mickey said, Larry used to say all the time that when he passed, no one would be here. And I'm extremely happy to see the amount of people that we have here, just showing the love that everyone has had. So thank you for everyone here. And I want to tell you a couple stories just from the time that me and Larry spent together. A lot of them are a little bit inappropriate for the setting that we're in right now, but I'm going to start off with one from the Dream Cruise from a couple years ago. So this was, I had just bought my PT Cruiser that a lot of you know about, and I was trying to do anything to spend time with Larry. I had just moved out. We were growing apart a little bit, but any second that I had, I was going over there to hang out with him or work on the truck or do whatever the case may be. So me, John Ross, and Larry are driving down Woodward, and the way his eyes lit up when he saw all of the cars, everything. And we're sitting there, and I turned the radio down, and he looks at me, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, I'm just trying to talk. He's like, no, turn that back up. Let's cruise. And that was just Larry. Larry loved to just cruise around and hang out. He didn't have to go and spend all the money or do whatever the case may be. He just wanted to spend time with you. And to be honest, I don't know where I would be without Larry. He's the reason I started martial arts. He's the reason I'm not some little punk kid that's in juvie or jail, because every time I got out of line, he made sure that I went back in line for sure. So, I just want to thank him for that. The last story I want to tell is the one from the night before he passed. And this is a memory that I'm going to cherish for the rest of my life. We were sitting around the bonfire, just hanging out. He had a couple drinks, we're sitting there, I had a couple drinks. And we're just sitting there telling the most inappropriate jokes that I've ever heard in my life. And I'm like looking up them online, and every time I say one, he's got like one that's twice as better as me. So, exactly, he's just thinking of them. I'm like, why are you doing this? And he ends the night just before we're getting ready to head out. And he looks at me and Ajane, and I make fun of this all the time, because he goes, when are you two gonna have a baby? Because I don't know how much longer I have left. And this was the night before he passed. I think he knew something was coming, but I didn't expect it that fast. So, thank you again for everybody for coming. Larry, I love you and I miss you.
How's everybody doing tonight? How you guys doing? I'm gonna tell a couple stories about Larry. He was a guy that liked to scrap a lot, but he hated when it affected his cars, especially his trucks. So one time we went to the scrapyard, we just got done scrapping, and we drive out. All we hear is a big thumping noise in his tire. We got out, he gets a nail this thick in his tire. He got so mad about it. But the funniest thing about it, the next week he went back. So I was like, if you keep going back, you're gonna get more nails. But that was his thing. He liked to scrap. All of us, me and Richie, he took us to go scrapping a lot. And his last scrap he did, he bought something with the money he had. He bought Mom something. I can't remember what it was, but he bought Mom something for Mother's Day. And I thought, that's a true gentleman right there. He took all his money out of his pocket to put it on us, me, Richie, Ajane, anything we needed, he was there for us. I remember he told me when I injured myself, he's like, keep doing that, you're gonna end up like me. Because he had a knee replacement and I had a slight tear in my ACL, so it was pretty similar. But one story I want to tell is we're driving, like we was doing a dream cruise, and it was me and Larry in this old black GMC. We was driving down, and he got mad because he didn't put coolant in his car, so it overheated. We kept stopping every 3 seconds. And then we called Mom, and he's like, okay, we can't do this no more. You can bring us some coolant, and we're just sitting there laughing. And small memories. And yes, on the Mother's Day, we were joking a lot, but he comes up to me and he's like, I'm proud of you, everything you did. Keep up with your grades, go to college, don't end up like me, because I don't want you to have to go through what I had to go through. And do what you're supposed to, respect your mom, or else I will come back for you. And I take that to heart every time. So this next school year, I'm gonna graduate for him and finish off high school right.
Thank you. Sometimes it's not always about what you do, but who you raise, the impact that you have. Larry had influence. He had influence on people that are going to continue to have influence. And that's really what leadership is. And he did it. And he'll continue to do it through his example to these boys and others. Larry loved to do woodwork. You can see some of his work up here. He could make a boat out of toothpicks. He spent a little time in the pen, so that's what you learn how to make boats out of toothpicks. Because you have some time, go burn a beautiful clock. Talented with these types of things. He was a scrapper, as John Ross said. Nobody could even count the times he and the boys would come home exhausted, moving scrap all day. He wasn't afraid to work. He had a lot of friends, loved him deeply. A lot of people who loved, that he loved as well, and they loved him. He enjoyed taking the boys, as mentioned, to basketball games and karate. I wouldn't want to mess with these boys. Like to have them on my side. Loved to work on cars. He was emphatic about the boys making something of their lives. He had a deep sense of regret for things that he had done and wanted to make it different for others. Larry didn't take the opportunity to go to school. He was moved from place to place throughout his childhood, and he didn't learn to read and write until later on in life. And while he wasn't able to read and write so well, he wasn't short of giving good advice about life. He was a kind-hearted person, willing to help, even if he didn't know you. It's just the kind of person that he was. Larry loved his kids and raised John Ross and Richie as his own. He was always bothered by the fact that he didn't spend time with his kids while they were young, but later in life tried to keep in contact, whether it was a holiday or long conversations. He was very close to his brother Jerry and his sister-in-law Judy. Talked to Jerry nearly every day, sometimes for hours. He loved Mary Lou, her boys, loved his best friend, Scrappy, his dog. I met Scrappy. Scrappy's Scrappy. He took Scrappy everywhere. Scrappy loved the long rides and hanging out with Larry and his friends. Larry loved to grow fresh vegetables with Mary Lou, and as soon as the cucumbers were ready, the boys would steal them. One of his favorite things to do was have people over, bonfires, and spend time Jack and Jill with friends. And Larry has been missed a lot since back in early May, and he's missed still, and he will be missed forever. I didn't know Larry real well. Mary Lou helped me with lots of those thoughts. Thank you for helping me to get to know him. I only met him a couple of times, and there's one thing that I know about him that is common to so many people, and it's not because he told me this. It's just because you just kind of know some things. And one of the things I know about Larry, without ever even talking to him about it, is that he didn't feel worthy of the love of God. He didn't. He, like so many people, Larry looked at his life and he made the assumption in his mind and in his heart, like so many of us do, that somehow God is keeping score. That God is kind of looking at what we've done, decisions we made, and he compares them to himself, which, God is awesome, God is perfect. And somehow that disparity just overwhelms people. How could I ever please God? How could I ever be worthy of God's love after what I've done? After the way I've behaved? And I know that about Larry because he had a heart for people to be better than him. He had a heart for the boys to do better than him, to make better choices than he did. Even in the last few days of his life, and up at Mother's Day and on, he talked about, maybe I should go to church. I need to go to church with you. He talked to Mary Lou, and he recognized some kind of a need to somehow make his peace with God. Wrestle with that stuff. And I want to address that for just a minute with you, because I'm trying to figure out what would Larry want to tell us right now. If he could stand right here, grab a microphone for a few minutes, and talk to us from the perspective of what he knows now. Because our lives are, in comparison to forever, our lives here on earth are nothing but a puff of smoke, right? I mean, it's just like that. And so he has a totally different perspective now that he's passed through the veil, if you will, that curtain of death, where now we leave our body behind and our spirit, our soul goes on into eternity. What would he say to us? What perspective would he give? Because in 10 seconds, we're going to be where he is, figuratively speaking. Life goes quick. He said to you, Mickey, just sitting there, I'm old. Isn't that the truth? You're barely young, and then you're old. It's just right now. I remember 10 minutes ago, running around a ball field when I was 11. My daughter was just born 6 minutes ago, and she just got married. Just like that. All you young people, I know what you're thinking. Oh, shut up, you old preacher. 5 minutes, you have a cane. Get your knees replaced. Make you cook. You can borrow your mom's, fellas. What would Larry say? What perspective would he give? There's this guy, I'll call him Nick. His name was Nicodemus, but it's back in the Bible. You can read it in the book of John chapter 3. And Nicodemus was a religious leader, and he comes to Jesus at night because he's embarrassed. He doesn't even want people knowing he's talking to Jesus. Some of us are like that. We're like, I don't know if I want people knowing I'm interested in church, and that it wouldn't go over real well. That was Nick. And he comes to Jesus at night, and he says this to Jesus. He says, somehow we know that you're more than just a regular dude. We know that you come from God because of the things you're doing. And Jesus looks at him and he says this. He says, unless a man is born again, he can't see the kingdom of God. And Nicodemus, in his lack of understanding, says, how in the world is a person supposed to be born again? Can a man go back into his mother's womb and be reborn? And Jesus says, that's not what I'm talking about. Unless a man is born from above, born in his spirit again, so that somehow his eyes become open, and he sees eternity now. He sees that life consists of more than just things. You've heard of the guy that climbs the ladder of success, spends his whole life climbing the ladder of success, and then finally when he gets to the top, he realizes the ladder's leaning against the wrong building. Lots of us do that. We spend our whole life just climbing and do it and grab it and grasp it and sweating, and we don't even take the time to examine whether or not we're doing it for the right reason. And people spend their whole lives planning. It's like the kid that's getting ready to graduate from high school, and the wise preacher said to him, "Hey, what are you going to do next?" He said, "Man, I'm going to college. I'm going to get me a degree, and I'm going to make some money." He said, "That's awesome. Hope you make a lot of money. What are you going to do after that?" "I'm going to buy stuff. I'm going to get me a house here. I'm going to have a house up north. I'm going to have a boat. I'm going to have some jet skis and some four-wheelers. I'm going to do it all." "Good for you. Way to go. What are you going to do after that?" "Well, I'm going to work, and I'm going to go ahead and have multiple businesses. I'm going to start a franchise. I'm just going to get richer and richer." "That's awesome. What are you going to do after that?" "Well, after that, I guess I'm going to retire. I mean, I have some kids and maybe a wife or two and do all that." "Yeah, what are you going to do after that?" "Well, I'll be old. I hope I won't be too sick, hope I can enjoy it." "That's good. What are you going to do after that?" "What do you mean?" I guess I'm going to die." "What are you going to do after that?" I think if Larry could talk to us right now, he would say, take some time to think about how you're living. Examine your life. Take enough time to breathe and settle down for a minute and think about the trajectory of your life. Where are you headed? And not just in this world standard, but where are you headed? What building is your ladder leaning against? Are you building your life on a sure foundation? Because when you're young, you look to the future. But when you're old, you look in the past. It's just the truth. Most old people's life is looking in the rearview mirror. What did I do? How did I live? What choices did I make? And life is funny. It piles up on you. And a decade goes by, and another decade goes by, and all of a sudden, you didn't even realize it, but you're looking in the rearview mirror way more than you used to. And pretty soon, your life is the sum of the decisions you've made. And if you haven't taken the time to consider where you've been, why you're doing what you're doing, then you have a life of regret. I think if Larry could talk to us, he would say, "Hey, I want you to grieve my death. Grieve well. And take the things that I was able to teach you and do the best you can with it." But then he would say this. He would say, "I want to remind you that you're going to be where I am in just a few minutes. And understand that the decisions that you make will have consequences. Not just in this life, but in the life to come." I think Larry would be an amazing teacher if he could speak to us right now. You know what one of those stories were that, I talked to you about Nick and how Jesus came. He came to Jesus at night, and Jesus said to him, "You have to be born again. You have to allow God to do something in your spirit." I think that's what Larry was getting at. He had this churning in him, knowing somehow God needed to do something in his spirit. He knew that he needed something. At the same time, I know he struggled with the idea that maybe I'm not worth it. The whole idea that if I go into church, the world's going to cave in on me thing. How many times did he say that? That statement alone tells you a whole lot about Larry's idea. He didn't feel good enough. Let me give you an insight, and Larry would tell you this too. I'm going to give you a mind-blowing insight about this whole idea of I'm not good enough. Ready? You're not. You're not. And neither am I. Let's take a little poll just for a minute, because God gave us a quick standard just to kind of test how we're doing. He said, "You shall have no other gods before me." How many of you have ever put anything before God in your life? Right, you raise up both hands if you were really honest. Levitate if you were really honest. Because, I'm a mess, right? How many would just go ahead and just say it? I am a hot mess. Right? Think about this. These are just some of the commandments to kind of test where you are with how you compare with God. You shall not lie. Anybody? Never lied? Somebody raise their hand and say, well, you just did, so you broke that one. You should not commit adultery. Jesus said, you don't even look upon another person with lust in your heart, or you're guilty of that. You should not steal. You should not covet or desire somebody else's husband or wife or their possessions. You just name a few of those commandments and all of a sudden you're like, I am like totally guilty. I've broken every one of those multiple times. And so you stand before God and you say, hey, I think I was good enough. And he says, really? So far you've already admitted that you're a lying, thieving adulterer. And we're just getting started. I wish I could talk to Larry right now and say, Larry, it's okay, buddy. You're not good enough. But that's what the gospel is all about. God didn't send his son into the world to die on a cross naked and beaten beyond recognition because you were good enough. He sent his son to be beaten beyond recognition because you weren't. And he was. You know what the real gospel is? God takes himself and he clothes himself with human flesh and becomes a man. Jesus. He never sinned. He comes, he dies. Why? Because people killed him? No, people couldn't have killed him if he wouldn't have allowed it. He died because he was taking your place. He's taking my place. That's the amazing thing about the gospel. God was never asking Larry to be perfect. We'd be in deep weeds. Every single one of us if God needed us to be perfect. Let me quote you the scripture and I'll wrap this up. Sing you a song. Jesus is talking to that Nick guy. And he says this. He said, for God so loved the world, not just the earth, but you, me. He so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. Nobody ever reads the scripture after that. It says God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world. He didn't send Jesus to the world so he can point at you and say, look at all that stuff you did. He could. The truth is, if we showed just what we thought about in our mind last night on these videos, you'd crawl out on your belly under these chairs and run out the door and never come back here again. We're a mess. We need a Savior. If Larry could talk to us right now, I believe he'd take this mic with fire in his eyes. He would say more than anything else, you need a Savior. You need somebody to take your place. Because if you're going to face God on your own, by your own merit, and you're going to try to stand before a holy God and say, hey, I did good enough, and you try to get out on your own merit, you are toast. And I think Larry would end with this. He would say you have two choices. You can gather all of the things that you've ever done, all the commandments you've ever broken, all the times you've shaken your fist at God or told him you're going to do your thing and I'm not doing it, I'm going to do my own thing. And you can pay for your own sin, which has the penalty, of course, of eternal hell and separation from God. Or you can allow Jesus Christ to pay for your sin for you. That's the gospel. When I die, when I got the cold dew on my brow and they put me in the ground, I am not standing before God saying, Rick Bosnick did something that was worthy of the love of God. No, I didn't. I spent most of my life doing my own thing and doing a lot of dumb stuff. I'm going to stand before God and I'm going to say the only reason that I'm even here and have any chance of being accepted is because you chose to love me in spite of myself. And you gave yourself in exchange for me. That's what Larry would tell us. That's what he would tell us. Larry was a gift. He didn't have all the training. But he was a gift from God, just like we all are to each other. He was hearing the Lord's call. And I love this scripture. It says in Genesis, won't the judge of the earth do what is right? He'll do just what's right. And I take great strength in that. So we commit Larry to the God who does all things well. We commit Larry to the God who really loved him so much that he gave his only son. From ashes to ashes and dust to dust, we commit him to the Lord. And I know that you will take all the lessons that were learned. John Ross had blessed me when you said you're going to graduate, you're going to make him proud. Way to go. Way to go. Make the Lord proud. Do what you can to thank the Lord for all that he's done for you. It's a good life. How's Scrappy doing? Dogs know, don't they? His best buddy. I want you to pray with me. Let me sing just a song in Larry's honor. Father, thank you for this family. Thank you for the lessons that Larry taught us. His life was not in vain. And Lord, we know that you loved him. All his life you loved him. All his life. And I pray, God, that you'll bless Mary Lou now as she adjusts to life without her sweetheart. I pray for these young people that you will walk alongside them and help them to live an honorable life. And we commit ourselves to you now. And we commit Larry to you. In Jesus' name, amen. That song that we played earlier, the Randy Travis version, that was a song Larry requested. Down by the riverside. Was he a country? He liked country. He liked rap too? He rubbed off on it, didn't it? I saw you, how you held that microphone, Richie. You're a rapper, aren't you? Yeah, I saw it. This song was written by a guy that, if you do the history on the internet, you'll get a kick out of it. He worked on a ship, and basically he was a slave trader. This song was written a long time ago. And he was a piece of work. He was a drunk, and he was on a particular ship, and he was so drunk and carrying on that the ship owner threw him overboard and then shot him with a harpoon. Didn't kill him, pulled him back on board and put him down on the deck of the ship, and he's chained. He's in prison because he was acting like an idiot. And he looked up from that place and examined his life, and he said, "My God, what have I done? What have I done with myself? He's chained, harpooned, hung over, and in the bottom of the ship, and he has a revelation of the love of God. And not long after that, he wrote a song. And this is the song. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I am found. And I was blind, but now I see. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. His grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. Sing it if you know it. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch, that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, I once was lost, but now I'm found, but now I am found. I was blind, but now I see. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Would you just bow your heads for a moment? And I'm just going to ask that you would honor others by not looking around for just a moment. Give everyone in here a moment of privacy. I want to ask you a personal question. How many of you in here see your need for forgiveness? Would you raise your hand up a moment? Nobody's looking around. But you say, I see my need. I know that I've sinned against God, and I see it. Raise your hand up. God bless many of you. I'd like you to know this. He's just waiting. He's just waiting. Everything has been purchased. Everything has been provided for you to be forgiven. Just ask Him, Lord, would you forgive me? Would you make me your son? Would you open my eyes? Would you help me to be born again so that I can see the whole reason that I'm here, the whole reason I was born, and so that I can have the security of knowing that I'll be with you when it's all over. Thank you for that. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Mary Lou, God bless you. All of you that loved Larry, God bless you for coming. Hope you'll stay for lunch and stick around and enjoy some time together with the family. You're dismissed. Bless you.
Yeah, too, because woodworking and all that, since we never had a memorial. I don't know where Grace, your grandma like this. So did your great grandma. Are you still videoing?
Yeah, you can go. Are you gonna stay? Or are you gonna...
Yeah, I'm gonna have lunch. What time is it? Yeah, yeah, let's.
Ma.
Thank you.
Thank you.